I think, Hassan, you have a story, a personal story that can be very interesting for all of us, because you are Somalian, you come from Somalia, but you spend part of your time as refugee in Europe.
I thought that story was for your university. You're now giving away.
And then now you are prime minister of your country. So and your country is one of the protagonists of this fight against extreme poverty. So I ask you to answer the question maybe from also your personal point of view.
It is true. Maybe poverty and refugees are linked together. And it's true. And when I come back to university, I'm going to take it a little bit more in detail. Very true. In 1989, I was a refugee in Norway. And I've worked many years in different institutions, including refugee institution, the Norwegian Refugee Council, for many, many years. And I became a prime minister of my country. And at some stage, I ended up going back to Norway as a prime minister, meeting the Norwegian prime minister and conducting our business in Norwegian. That, I think, it is a funny story that tells eradicating poverty is important for everyone, because it comes to the case of giving a chance to every human being, makes the world a better place in the future. Now, coming back to where we are on the SDGs, and I don't want to ruin the atmosphere here, but how relevant are the SDGs for nations emerging out of poverty or conflict? How relevant are they for nations who has been in difficult situations for close to 30 years? A nation like mine, who is now trying to re-engage with the international financial institutions, getting very close to arrest clearance after 3 years hard work. A nation who is trying to reform the security sector. A nation who is trying to put in place systems of governance to provide service to its people so that we become a legitimate government. Then you will ask a question. So if I ask my colleague on the right and ask him, you invest $14-15 billion on SDGs, how much did you invest in Somalia? Of course, he will say none. You ask each and every one of them, to my country, most of them, how much have you invested to eradicate problems in Somalia, working directly with the government of Somalia? They will tell you, most of them, none, or we work through ABC. Any assistance that is given to any nation that doesn't provide legitimacy to the government, it will never be sufficient and it's going to be temporary. Very true that we're working a case here of poverty reduction. But the world is at a stage where it's linked with security, linked with service delivery, linked with good governance, linked with eradication, corruption. That is why I think in the context of where I stand and where my country is today re-emerging, we need to change the narrative, the old narrative, the old mindset of how we've seen the world as one global world. There are nations who have different needs with investment that is different from others. We cannot be measuring SDGs as required of the Norwegians and the Danish and the Swedish or Canadians and say to other nations who are emerging, we will come back to you once we are able to use the same tool. There must be different tools in helping different nations based on the stage where they are. That is why I think the debate positively has to be how far have we reached in eradicating poverty or supporting nations, but also how effective have the model itself been.
Hassan, you are here and you have, I think, a great opportunity that this forum gave you, is to address an audience that can be an audience of people with the possibility to take decisions. So if you have the magic wand now, and you can achieve 3 dreams in the next 5 years. So you come back here in 5 years' time and you have achieved 3 things thanks to the magic wand. What are the 3 things you want to achieve to have this challenge really addressed?
Thank you very much. First, as I grew older, I came to realize there's less magic in this world and more reality. But as I take this note forward, first I'm going to say that the universal quest to attain SDGs is not a one-size-fits-all scenario. So that is, for example, a line I would leave with this audience. And the reason is that for the investment of SDGs to work, you will deal with nations who have had an absence of institutions. And in that, individuals or entities have been filling the space of institutions. And they become relevant and important, maybe for more risk of that particular nation. Now in our country, we've started rebuilding these institutions. Investing in rebuilding these institutions itself must be seen as part of attaining the SDGs. That is the magic number 1. So, in other words, one has to understand that in the context of my country, we came to the realization that changing the narrative of the nation itself have proven to be far more difficult than rebuilding the nation. And it's going to take time for that narrative, and as they put it perfectly, mindset to change. The second now I would want our colleagues of here to also take with is that there's a demographic change that are rapidly shaping in our region. The sub-Saharan Africa are the nations of which most of the people live under $2 a day. Yet there, 70% of the population are under the age of 30. If the investment is not tailored toward that, invested in, as you put it, giving them an opportunity, that is going to be the biggest risk we will face. Provided that we invest correctly, however, that is the biggest opportunity we have to do something with SDGs and make these nations who contribute. In other words, tailor-made investment is required. The fourth element here is that the contribution of the banks and the development entities need to be seen as an investment. These investments must be inclusive investment that generate inclusive economic growth, but that communities feel immediately and individuals feel, while at the same time lending legitimacy to the nation's institutions. And the final point is that in every nation, with the tremendous challenges, you will find a segment of that society who has a great capability and potential, who've survived all the challenges despite all odds. In our case, you have a thriving business community who has been built on trust, while every other institution broke down for more than 20 years. Understanding that context from the banks and development partners' views, even if it is investment and making money strategy, it is also something we can tap into. The final point I want to attempt here is that we've been working very closely with the international financial institutions to reform our economy, to re-engage with them so that we have finally access to the national development and national financial institutions. And we're set now to be reaching that target in the next few months, within the next 3-4 months. And once that has happened, I'm going to show a new picture of our country Somalia shouldn't be seen for what it has been or what it is, but it should be seen what it can be and the untold opportunities it has. The nation that links Indian Ocean and the Red Sea together. The nation that links Africa to the Middle East. The nation who links the Horn of African countries because of our origin, and every neighbor of ours have millions of Somalis also living there. A nation with potential resources on oil and gas, natural minerals, agriculture, service economy, of it is a strategic location. And a population of which 70% of them are under the age of 30. Therefore, in the next 20 years, we should be seeing our country as a nation development partner, see attractive nation, invest, and our people in the future welcome others to seek job and welcome refugees as others did to me in the late 80s. That's where I... Well, in terms of availing funds for African youth, I will let those with the money to answer that. But let me just turn to the young lady there. No, everything that is in our continent is our responsibility. We have to ask the difficult questions to ourselves and no one else. Is it anyone else's fault that we are having difficulties in our continent to change the narrative? Even if we say yes, and it is indeed, that won't help. So my philosophy is that it is us who are responsible to change the narrative of our countries and our continent by working for our people and for our continent. Why is it difficult? It is difficult because our history has an impact on our future. That is pure and simple. And to overcome that, we need to change what the other gentleman asked. The mindset, the political culture, and promote a system where men and women, young and old, have equal shares of the governance structures. That system of governance gives women and men the same opportunity to compete and to rebuild their nation. For us, for example, we come from nations whereby the majority of those who run our governments are only men. It is competing 50% of your population if you deny women the access of taking part of developing the nation. That is actually, as I said it before in other settings, running a car with half engine. We cannot compete in that way, and that is why we have to change this structure.